Part 74. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 740. It is said that 3 women are in one play, and 3 men can stand up to one Zuchel Yang. The house is simply cleaned in an hour, and Du Guoying basically undertakes most of the work. Among the 3, he was the one with the least money and power, so he naturally wanted to show more. At noon, there was a crackling sound outside, and Kevin stood up and leaned his neck to look outside, obviously curious about the custom of setting off firecrackers, and wanted to take a picture, but unfortunately the camera was broken. Lu Feng wrapped dumplings, glanced at him, and said, "Kevin, do you know why firecrackers are set off during Chinese New Year?" Kevin turned his head and said with a bit of arrogance, "I still know this. It has something to do with the Neon beast. In ancient times, people thought that burning firecrackers could scare away the Neon beast. Then why post the couplet, Du Guoying wondered, tell Neon beast. It's to exorcise evil spirits." Lu Feng wrapped the last dumpling in his hand and asked Kevin, "Then why eat dumplings?" "Exorcism," Kevin gave his own explanation and said, "Anyway, the whole spring festival is just fighting against evil spirits." "Look, you don't understand our country's culture." Lu Feng clapped the flour on his hands, looked at Kevin like a teacher, and said, "Dumplings, originally called jiaozi, are the famous Dr. Zhang Zhongjing in the Eastern Han Dynasty. The invention of a medicinal diet is itself a kind of medicinal tonic. At first it was a soup dumpling, like a wonton, and later it became a dumpling." "Then why do you want to eat it during the New Year?" Du Guoying asked curiously. Kevin also looked at Lu Feng curiously. "It's delicious. Whoever stipulates that it is only eaten during the New Year's Eve, when you have the money and want to eat it? We have wrapped the dumplings, you are responsible for cooking," Lu Feng instructed Kevin. Du Guoying looked at the large and small pots with vegetables on the ground. Some of them had already been selected, and some were still in the bag. He had a big head for a while. It was noon. "Boss Lu, these dishes." "Don't do it." Lu Feng picked up the cigarette on the table and lit one. "Then eat dumplings." "I have to have some food, go out and pack a table and come back." Lu Feng took a cigarette, picked up the car key and said to himself, "It's so damn good to have money." Du Guoying followed behind Lu Feng and muttered, "It's so damn good." After going out to pack a table of food and returning, Kevin successfully boiled the dumplings into pieces of soup. Lu Feng looked at the pot of food and sighed, and said, "Let's fire a gun." With the crackling of firecrackers, everyone took their seats, each with a bowl of soup in front of them. Lu Feng picked up the wine glass and said to the 2, "Toast for our fate." "Happy New Year." Kevin looked at Lu Feng after saying that. In the morning, he didn't mention the compensation for the camera at all, so he had to call him and said, "This moment is really wonderful, but it's a pity that my camera is broken, otherwise I must take it." Du Guoying looked at Lu Feng. Obviously they didn't want to waste it here, so they took the money and left after eating. "By the way, when I talk about this camera, I think of industrialization. When I talk about industrialization, I have to mention the car." Lu Feng said to Kevin, "I couldn't sleep because of my thoughts last night. The way to know each other, I think it's just for this fate, my brother has to give you a hand." "What's the matter?" Du Guoying said with a serious look. "Let's go first." Lu Feng picked up the wine glass, touched it with everyone, and drank it all in one go. Lu Feng slammed his mouth and took a sip of the dish. "I know if you listen to it or not. However, my brother still wants to remind you that choosing a good industry will make it easier for you to succeed." Seeing that he was doing this again, Kevin picked up the bowl and said, "For the New Year's Eve, don't talk about that, let's have a slice of soup. You let me finish. If you are in a public transportation company, or a freight truck company, then I will definitely support you. But what am I seeing now? It's a fire pit, you can't just watch you jump off it." Lu Feng said bitterly, "I'm warm-hearted, and I won't hurt you. You go out and ask, we are all living Lei Feng. Brother, are you from the northeast? Du Guoying wondered. Not like it? You also have a sister's accent. We all have to talk like this, don't we? We have to talk for a few miles to turn around to be the northeast silver. Lu Feng turned around and said to Kevin, it's all for your own good. Don't think too much, as if it's like poaching you. It's okay, even if you go to another car company, I'll be happy for you. I think what he said makes sense. How old are you this year? Du Guoying asked Kevin. 53. Look, people in their 50s are not the boss, so it's impossible to say that. Du Guoying had a bit of disgust on her face, patted Lu Feng on the shoulder and said, look at people, 27, boss. It is an iron fact that the global growth of family cars has slowed down. Otherwise, they would not be in a hurry to develop the Asian market. Throughout the 90 years, the global growth rate of trucks, vans has been very fast. Compared with family cars, almost like a snail. As a tool car, it can create wealth, which is the strongest demand in developing countries, but the comfort and face of family cars are second. In 1993, the country produced 220,000 family cars, including more than 100,000 Tianjin Daihatsu vans, and less than 50,000 family cars, many of which were cheaper than Volkswagen Jetta and Santana, such as Fukang. The output of trucks exceeds 600,000. In this era, cargo carrying is more popular than people carrying. Most of the rural areas do not even have a big departure. Layer tarpaulin. This is the main means of transportation. Kevin also found that after Volkswagen entered the mainland, sales were not as good as expected. The demand for cars in developed countries was gradually satisfied. Now the market that can be opened up is the four little dragons. With so many car manufacturers competing for one of the few high-growth regions in the world, the intensity can be imagined. If there is no economic rise of China, the global economy will reach its peak in the early 2000s. The rise of the mainland has exported the cheapest products to the world. At the same time of economic growth, this is a consumption black hole, and the global automobile and luxury goods are constantly increasing. Products, industrial industries, raw materials, high-tech and other consumption. I'm also getting older, it's good to stay in the public. Kevin didn't want to answer very much. As long as you don't close your eyes, life can't be easily ended. If you take a different path, there may be unexpected rewards. Lu Feng picked up the bowl and ate a piece of soup. I think so too, Du Guoying said while helping. If I were at your age and reached your height, I would definitely do whatever I want. Anyway, I don't have to worry about eating and drinking, right? I have to say that Mr. Lu's judgment on the family car industry is relatively accurate. In the past 2 years, the growth rate of family cars in mainland China has lagged behind that of trucks. Kevin hesitated for a while, then said, it may also be related to the marketing plan. It doesn't matter, no matter how good your marketing is, a poor person like me can't afford it, Du Guoying said to him, since it is called the public, it is for the public, but your price is too small. Mr. Lu, the work you do is called the public. There is a saying that the lower the threshold, the bigger the market. The bigger the market, the more fools. It's a beautiful sentence, but it's not appropriate to say the last sentence so directly. Lu Feng picked up the wine glass and touched Du Guoying. My fault, is the honorable consumer god. He touched the cup, drank it, and continued, sugar cane is not sweet at both ends. The important thing is to identify the market, identify the crowd, and find the right one. The right thing to sell to the right people at the right price. The problem is, your crowd is a niche, and you want to be a crowd, which is the opposite of itself. Lu Feng clapped his hands and said to Du Guoying, that's great. Kevin also looked at him in surprise. He didn't expect this young man to see things so clearly. Family cars, if they can't meet the consumption of the vast majority of families, I think it's an industry with no prospects, Lu Feng said while eating his vegetables. Isn't it just a sale? People, don't give up your mind. The last thing people like is to hang on a tree. Learn to look for opportunities in other trees. The three of you are talking about each other, from the global business environment to the military and the future of the industry. A box of red wine has bottomed out before you know it, and the three of them are chatting enthusiastically. Lu Feng was already sitting next to Kevin, with one arm around his shoulder and one hand choking his eyes, and said slightly drunk, "Brother, it's not that I'm digging you or something, it definitely doesn't mean that. It's just fate, right? No one cares about $10,000. I just slapped the money on the table right now, and you can't just pick up the money and leave, right?" Kevin looked at Lu Feng for a while and said, "I will pick up the money and leave, I don't want to disturb you too much." "Look at you, this old beauty is not interesting." Lu Feng took a cigarette and said, "You are deep in the fog and can't see the situation clearly. It's all right. I don't care about you. I'll give you a chance. This way. Go to our company after the new year, and I'll show you how huge the global home appliance market is now." Kevin wanted to refuse, but he could see that Lu Feng would never give up until he got him. He doesn't want that 10,000 yuan anymore. Just as he was about to refuse, Du Guoying on the side hurriedly said, "Brother, don't refuse first, I'll tell you something, let's come here." Lu Feng was sitting there smoking a cigarette, and Du Guoying called Kevin aside, looking mysterious. "Is there anything I can't say at the dinner table?" Kevin wondered. "Brother, I want to ask you something. Maybe you don't know much about it? My family is particularly difficult. The whole family is supported by me, but now Du Guoying's eyes blushed as she spoke, and she couldn't speak anymore. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 741. In Kevin's eyes, Lu Feng is an oily person, and at first glance, he is the kind of person who has a lot of heart. Du Guoying is different. He looks like an ordinary person, and Kevin looks at him with a mentality of looking at the weak. "What's wrong?" Kevin asked, concerned. "You don't know, my whole family relies on me alone. I came here to find a job, otherwise I wouldn't come out for the new year, but I didn't find a job, and I didn't know how to face my family." Du Guoying looked at Kevin with a sullen face, and said in a low voice, "You can also see that Boss Lu is quite rich. You are still young, you can't go on the road of breaking the law." Kevin hurriedly stopped. "That's not what I mean, I want to find a job with him and find a class," Du Guoying explained. "What a big deal, Mr. Lu is still very good at talking. But I remind you that this person may be a liar, you have to be careful," Kevin reminded. "Of course it's a small matter between a big man like you. It's hard to say for a little man like me. It's also thanks to you that I can eat here." Du Guoying looked embarrassed and sighed lightly. I just want to ask you to do me a favor, regardless of whether he is a liar or not, you will help me deal with it first. If it is true, then I will find a way, if it is false, then forget it." Kevin was in trouble. He really didn't want to stay with Lu Feng, and didn't really want to help him. Of course Du Guoying could see what he was thinking. Her whole face wrinkled, she was about to kneel and pleaded, "My mother is in her 60s this year, and she is still planting dozens of acres of land in the village. Yesterday I called my family phone, saying I found a job here, it's great. The Kwiwa I like is still waiting for me to earn money to marry her, I really have nowhere to go. At this moment, Kevin is soft-hearted, and he is too difficult. Destiny is different for everyone. He only needs to do a little thing to change a person's destiny." "Okay, I'll help you," Kevin agreed, "wipe away your tears." "Thank you." Du Guoying took a deep breath and thanked him sincerely. Lu Feng sat at the dining table, resting his head on one hand, listening to the whispers of the two, but not very clearly. After a while, Du Guoying came over and sat down again, and Kevin also sat back. "What are you two talking about for so long?" Lu Feng looked at the two of them and asked curiously. "It's nothing, just talking about some of President Lu's glorious deeds." Kevin sat down and poured himself some red wine, and said to Lu Feng, "President Lu, you keep talking about fate. I think Du Guoying has a great fate with you." Lu Feng glanced at Du Guoying, laughed and said, "The three of us have a special fate. I still hope you can think about what I said. We have no injustice or enmity. I can't harm you, right? Sum are up, let's take a rest first." Lu Feng said and stood up, staggering slightly. Du Guoying hurriedly supported him. When the two of them carried Kevin on their backs, Du Guoying quietly made an okay gesture towards Lu Feng. Lu Feng squeezed his eyes and walked upstairs. It wasn't until Lu Feng went upstairs and the sound of the bedroom door closing that Du Guoying sat down. He actually had his own ideas for helping Lu Feng. He really wanted to find a job. And he thinks that Lu Feng kept him because of Kevin, or else he was so rich and alone. What kind of friendship did he have with a poor ghost? He understands the truth very well, that is, he is only valuable when Kevin is there. Once Lu Feng can't take this person, he will be useless. For Du Guoying, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Taking advantage of Kevin's momentum to move up, to Lu Feng, Kevin is a hairy crab, Kevin is a hairy crab, and Du Guoying is a straw rope. As long as it is tied to this hairy crab, he can sell the price of hairy crabs with this straw rope. It's a pity that he never thought of a possibility. He and Kevin are both dishes on Lu Feng's table. Kevin looked at Du Guoying and asked, "What did you do before?" "Teacher. My university is a normal school," Du Guoying replied. "Then why are you wrong?" Du Guoying sighed, her expression became heavy, and she said, "The family has suddenly changed, and it is a last resort. My father is sick, and my brother has something wrong and urgently needs money. My salary is a drop in the bucket, so I can only resign. Shenzhen was looking for a way to survive, but I didn't expect to find a job. I had no relatives, and I almost wandered on the streets during the New Year's Eve." "This is too miserable, isn't it?" Kevin said with a glass of wine. "May God be with you, cheers." The two touched the cups. Du Guoying seemed rather melancholy. He was not pretending. Since resignation, he has started his own business, losing money and making profits. After 2 years of mixing up to now, he has no money, and it is miserable. "Mr. Kevin, thank you very much for helping me." Du Guoying looked at him and said sincerely, "Thank you. You haven't said how I want to help you. If I don't leave now, he won't want you. If you want to enter a company, you must focus on ability in the end." Kevin worried. "You can also see that Boss Lu especially wants you to join his company." "My thoughts are like this: I'll get to know him in the past 2 days, and you can tell me more about me in front of him, then I'll be the two of you. I am sure he will not refuse." Du Guoying sighed and said, "If he refuses, I will have no choice but to live on the street." "No, there are jobs everywhere," Kevin comforted. "As long as you are willing to endure hardships, you will not be unable to survive." "I really don't care. I can do labor work tomorrow, but my father can't wait that long." Du Guoying took a deep breath and said with a miserable expression, "I quit my job as a teacher because the salary was too low. I want to give it a shot and give my dad a way out." "It will be fine," Kevin could only comfort him. "If I can't go to Boss Lu's company, I'll follow you." Du Guoying looked at him and found a way back for himself. Anyway, these two big men, just hugging a thigh is enough to make him take off. He will definitely agree. Kevin was a little anxious when he saw that he was going to cling to him. First of all, Du Guoying had no professional ability, and secondly, he had nothing valuable. He just wanted to make money. It is best for such a person to join other companies. After all, taking other people's money to show kindness is the least distressing. After 5 o'clock, Lu Feng woke up and was busy making dumplings again. This time, he didn't dare to let Kevin cook and finish the meal. It was already 7 o'clock in the evening, and he turned on the TV and watched the news. Lu Feng and Du Guoying were busy in the kitchen. Du Guoying said in a low voice, "Boss Lu, I've solved it for you. He probably won't leave in a few days. I chatted with him in the afternoon, and he doesn't have to go to work recently." "Nice job." Lu Feng smiled at him and said, "I'll give you a big red envelope when I go back." Du Guoying saw that Lu Feng didn't say more, and felt that he had to tell him some things in a different way. Fortunately, in the afternoon, he and Kevin became familiar with each other, and the two also studied quietly. Set up a plan. When the food was on the table, the sound of gunfire outside was already one after another. The news broadcast ended, and the annual Spring Festival Gala was coming soon. Lu Feng sat down and said to Kevin, "This is also our New Year's tradition, eating dumplings, setting off firecrackers, and watching the Spring Festival Gala. I've watched it for several years, and I know better than you," Kevin said happily. "Sit down." Du Guoying politely opened the red wine and put it aside to sober up. Lu Feng and Kevin murmured about some customs during the Spring Festival, such as lighting a fire, welcoming the god of joy, sending the god of mildew, cleaning the door, returning to the mother's house, and the new daughter-in-law visiting the house to pay New Year's greetings. "There are a lot of customs," Kevin said while eating. "Fortunately, my wife is a Singaporean. On such a day of reunion, the three of us are really touching. President Lu, you keep saying that we are destined to let me join GFN Electronics." Hey, I never told you to join GFN," Lu Feng hurriedly interrupted him and said, "I just think that your industry will not grow very well in the future. You come out of the auto industry and have some future prospects. A better industry. Brother, I bless you, I like to tell the truth, I am a warm-hearted person, you will understand after more communication." "I can see that Boss Lu looks like a good person," Du Guoying flattered. "I mean, you've been pointing me, and you point him too." Kevin looked at Du Guoying and said, "I'm in my 50s, and I don't have much future for pointing." "How old is Du Guoying?" "Unlimited. I'm just an ordinary person, and I can't compare with the two." Du Guoying lowered his head with little confidence. "Don't say that, anyone who has a dream is amazing. I believe that as long as President Lu says something, you can release energy that you can't even imagine." Kevin looked at Lu Feng and said, "What do you think?" "Okay." Lu Feng felt different, seeing how the two of them looked like they were playing him here. He said, "It's easy to say, he's not working now anyway. Your problem is bigger. I don't think I'm worthy of a big company like GFN. Don't embarrass Boss Lu." Du Guoying is very smart and looks rather pitiful. Kevin looked at him sitting there with his head down and didn't speak, feeling a little uncomfortable. A young man who was about to be overwhelmed by life, came here to fight his life and worked hard, a man who was about his age but already had some capital. The two of them were sitting at the same dining table. Kevin looked at them and sighed that fate was unfair, and frowned slightly. "Mr. Lu, if you were him at the moment, how do you think you would feel?" Lu Feng really did not expect that Du Guoying first forced himself to join the company. "I'm not him, but I believe he will have a very bright future." Lu Feng put down his chopsticks and thought to himself, Kevin is not very good at speaking. Given his current position, it seems that he is speaking like this. Very unemotional look. "Kevin, I can understand that you worry about the future for him. After all, everyone will sympathize with the weak, but your way of speaking is inappropriate, right? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 742. Kevin is not without emotional intelligence, but in the face of Lu Feng, who has little to do with his own interests, he does not need any emotional intelligence. Kevin frowned slightly and said, "No matter how you speak, you can't treat it differently. This young man still has great potential. People's potential can only be called potential when it is fully realized, otherwise it will always be an ordinary person." Since Mr. Kevin has spoken, I will also make a comment. Lu Feng looked at Du Guoying and said, "Since there is potential, then you should sit on the table. In an important position. As long as you join us, I will give him a vice president position." "Thank you, Boss Lu," Du Guoying thanked. "Don't worry, thank you, you still have to see what Kevin means. I'm also talking about it now. It's a big New Year's Eve, so there's nothing to talk about." Lu Feng leaned back on his chair and said, "If Kevin joins, you'll be fine. Didn't you just say that I don't think about him as an ordinary person? Now the decision is in your hands." When Kevin saw that Lu Feng was going to take his army, he glanced at Du Guoying and didn't want to continue to help. If he just said a word, he would of course be overflowing with love. Now to move his cheese, he's not stupid. Du Guoying put his chopsticks on top of the bowl, looked at Kevin a little pitifully, and hoped that he would say something for him, but Kevin pretended not to be able to see and said, "The party has begun." The three turned their attention to the TV. There were not many popular programs left in this year's Spring Festival Gala. The sketch playing poker was one of the few. Among the critical sketches, this sketch was very representative. "The dumplings are very good." After eating and watching the show, I chatted with Kevin a lot of Spring Festival customs, and also involved some international affairs. At 11:30 in the evening, the outside had become a sea of artillery battles. Even if Lu Feng lived in the villa area, he lived in a relatively remote place, and the sky in the distance had become a sea of colorful flowers. The host on the TV said with emotion, "Year after year, we bid farewell to the year of the rooster and ushered in the year of the dog. During this year, I believe in you." In front of the TV, there are harvests, joys, separations, and gatherings. No matter whether it is laughter or tears in this year, it has finally passed, like a white horse passing through a gap, never looking back, and forever retained in our memory. Lu Feng leaned back on the chair, his eyes looked at the fireworks that bloomed and disappeared in an instant. He picked up the wine glass in his hand and drank it. The three of them looked at it very quietly. In the days when the whole family was reunited, three unrelated people gathered here for the new year. Du Guoying looked at the fireworks and felt a little sad. He said that heroes come from teenagers, but he was still worried about $3 or $2. Every year, there are people soaring into the sky. When will it come to me? A few years after graduation, the teacher's job was stable, but he wanted to fight. Looking at the present after many years, the mighty era is full of opportunities, but when you are in the torrent of the times, how can it be so easy? He was riding a motorcycle. Using the wheel to measure Shenzhen, a place where young people's dreams take off. Apart from confusion, there is only confusion left. Kevin's mood is also more complicated, thinking about his family members who are thousands of miles away. Lu Feng was thinking, what is Zhang Xiaoyan doing now? Whether Duo will think of himself, at this moment when thousands of houses are lit up, in this era that does not belong to him. Does anyone still think of him at this moment, even if it is hate? Let's set off a cannonball. Lu Feng stood up, lit a cigarette and went to get a cannonball. After 12 o'clock, Lu Feng returned to the room, washed briefly and fell asleep. When he entered the bedroom, he stood on the floor. Shang moved towards the two of them and said, "I'm going to the company tomorrow, will you two go?" Go, Du Guoying hurriedly agreed and turned to look at Kevin. "I can also go and see," Kevin said. "You guys rest early," Lu Feng said and entered the room. Du Guoying saw that Lu Feng was back, looked at Kevin and said, "Mr. Kevin, didn't you agree in the afternoon, you help me enter Boss Lu's company?" The premise for me to help you is that I will help you to mention that everyone agrees, and I can't do anything if they don't agree," Kevin said helplessly. He also made it clear that he just wanted to win me in. "But I didn't want to leave public. I know you're very embarrassed, but you can pretend to agree." Du Guoying seemed a little urgent, but the next second he eased his emotions, sat down, took a glass of red wine and drank it, and then Lu Feng took a cigarette and lit one. His face was full of bitterness. "I'm sorry," Du Guoying apologized to Kevin. "You don't need to say sorry, I can only say that I did my best." Kevin was not stupid, he used himself as a bait, went to win him, and sighed, "Even if I help you enter the company, it will eventually be because of me. If you don't join Jiafeng, you will be kicked out." Du Guoying smoked a cigarette and breathed a long sigh of relief, as if he had put down the burden on his shoulders, lowered his head and said, "Maybe you are older, I don't know if you have the same mentality as me at my age, the same idea." "What?" Kevin patted him on the shoulder and comforted, "Speaking it out will make you feel better." I'm afraid that I will live a mediocre life. I'm quite afraid of the kind of life that can be seen at a glance. This is one of the reasons why I fled the profession of a teacher." Du Guoying smoked a cigarette and whispered, "One day I suddenly fell out of my dream. When I woke up, I had a particularly horrific nightmare." "What dream?" "In my dream, I was standing on the podium, and batch after batch of students walked past me like a horse and a flower, and the grass grew one after another at the corner of the campus. I passed the blind date at home and found a girl who neither liked nor hated, got married, lived happily after marriage, had children, and then watched the children grow up day after day, and I gradually grew old. At the last moment of my life, I recalled I lived my whole life as if I had done nothing, then woke up from a dream, and from that day on, I told myself I didn't want to live like that." After hearing this, Kevin didn't know how to comfort him, so he was silent for a while and said, "But this is the life of an ordinary person, isn't it? I'm struggling in this bustling big city, just want to live a personal life." Du Guoying was more emotional, raised his head to look at Kevin and said, "Let my family be happy, let my dad." "One day I told others, look, my son is okay, much better than his father. I was in the city, wandering from the south of the city to the north of the city. I moved again and again, like a stray dog. I am one chance missing. Just one chance. You don't know how important a chance is to a young man. When I was young, it was the same, complaining about the injustice." Kevin stared at him, as if remembering when he was young. "I really beg you, you can give me a chance and let me enter a big company. You heard just now that Boss Lu can give me the position of vice president. Even if I go in and I can't stay, I'm also content. At least you gave me a chance, but I can't do it." Du Guoying looked at Kevin with red eyes and said, "I beg you, just take it as you help your younger self." Help your younger self. This sentence made Kevin completely unable to bear it. He also lingered outside the door of successful people. At that time, he wished that someone would give him a hand and give him a chance, but it is a pity that he fought for this opportunity for 6 years. "Tomorrow I'll go to Jiafeng Electronics to take a look. As for whether you can stay here, it's up to you." Kevin said to him, "Go to rest early." Du Guoying was stunned for a moment, stared at Kevin and said overjoyed, "Thank you." "Just be yourself," Kevin said to him, "I can only help you so much, the rest is up to you. After the hustle and bustle, there is tranquility. It is already 2 o'clock in the middle of the night, and the whole world is quiet." Du Guoying has an indescribable happiness in his heart. He simply tidied up the table and dishes and fell asleep. The first day of the new year is a day to visit relatives to pay New Year's greetings. Most enterprises do not start work today, and some even start work after the 15th day of the first lunar month. A large group of relatives rushed to Lu Feng's parents' house at the first time, saw that Lu Feng was not there, and left after staying for a while. The same situation was played out in Jiang's family, but Zhang Xiahong's family was also considered a wealthy family. A bunch of relatives barely stayed. At around 10 o'clock, Lu Feng put on a suit and looked at Du Guoying. Taking advantage of Kevin's inattentiveness, Du Guoying quietly made an okay gesture. "Would you two go together?" Lu Feng saw that he had indeed managed Kevin, and said, "The year is over, Kevin, for your compensation, I will go to the company to give you the money." Kevin was a little surprised. He didn't expect that Lu Feng actually planned to give money. "Okay, I happen to visit your company too. However, this year is the first day of the new year, shouldn't it be a holiday?" Kevin wondered. Most of the people are on vacation, and a tough team in the R/U0026D company is still working. "Let's take a look and send a red envelope," Lu Feng said, preparing the red envelope and saying, "Let's go." The three got into the car and went straight to the R/U0026D company. The red envelopes this time are still relatively thick. A single red envelope is 1,000 yuan. Some senior R/U0026D personnel work overtime during the Chinese New Year. According to Lu Cheng, there are 10 doctors alone, which is definitely the core R/U0026D team of Jiafeng. The car was parked downstairs in the company, and Lu Feng went upstairs. Compared with the past, it was indeed empty. In a large office, there were a lot of blueprints and materials on the table. More than 30 people gathered around there. The chatter goes on and on. Lu Feng pushed open the door and walked in, and said with a smile, "Happy New Year, everyone has worked hard, I wish you all New Year's greetings." "Hello, Mr. Lu." "Mr. Lu, when did you come?" Lu Cheng raised his head to see Lu Feng, and hurriedly stepped forward and said, "Don't say a word, let's go meet him." "What are you welcome? Compared with you, it's not hard work, you are really hard work." Again, the company is people-oriented, rest when it's time to rest. "I'm here to give everyone a red envelope and feel happy," Lu Feng spoke and took out the prepared red envelope from his pocket. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 743. Lu Feng sent red envelopes one by one. Everyone was smiling, but some people looked at Lu Cheng and felt a little uncomfortable. How good is the boss? He sent red envelopes to everyone, and let everyone pay attention to rest. Lu Cheng squeezed these people all day long. "I didn't go back to the new year this year. Although I can't help you much in research and development, I feel that I should be by your side. The reason why the company can grow is because of you, the most lovely and hard-working people. Overtime is the last resort is to meet the deadline, but we must not let our engineers celebrate the new year, physically tired, and even more tired in heart," Lu Feng said to everyone, "so I am with everyone. More importantly, I want you to know that the company has always been. I value you all very much." "Thank you, Mr. Lu." There was applause at the scene, and the engineers looked at Lu Feng and liked it even more. Boss Lu didn't look like Lu Cheng. He knew that he would scold people in meetings all day long, and he would be held accountable if he couldn't finish it. Boss Lu looked kinder and more approachable. Lu Feng said this, of course, to make these engineers have a good impression of himself. After all, he is the one who squeezed Lu Cheng. Of course, he is amiable in the face of these engineers. If Lu Cheng can't come up with a feasible plan to try in March, Lu Feng was afraid that he could eat him alive. There is another reason why Lu Feng wants to leave a good impression on these engineers. If one day Liu Can is unhappy, and all the engineers below will follow him, will the company still do it? Don't talk about contracts, bundling agreements, etc. If a group of irreplaceable engineers under the leadership of the R/U0026D company's boss collectively chooses or quits jobs, I'm afraid that the company will go bankrupt before the lawsuit with this group of people is over. Any company boss or leader will perform very well in the face of employees who are not directly managed. You will feel that such a good leader is how good you are under his hands. If you really go under his hands one day, you will find that the other party has changed his face. Make a good impression and make you hate your supervisor, not the company, a little management trick. Lu Feng inquired about the progress of the product. At present, all the technical key points have been sorted out and will be digested in 3 to 5 days. At the same time, a series of work such as appearance design, display screen, signal registration, and filing has also been carried out. Outside the hall, Lu Cheng reported, like Lu Fenghui, the technology is ready-made, and the equipment of our subordinate factories is also ready-made, and it can be used after adjustment. As for the supporting industries, such as plastic factories and copper alloy factories, we all have them ourselves. Need to add supporting manufacturers, mass production in March. I don't think it is a big problem. That's good, you guys can work first, I'll take a look, Lu Feng said to Lu Feng. Who are these two? Lu Cheng only saw the two people behind Lu Feng, and there was a foreigner. Two people with fate. Lu Feng still felt that Lu Cheng was not suitable for fooling these two, and asked, is Zhu Lidong on vacation? No, he didn't arrive at the headquarters yesterday. He should be on duty at the headquarters today, Lu Cheng replied. Then make a call. Let him come over. After finishing his instructions, Lu Feng said to the two of them, let's go over there and have a rest. Boss Lu, your company is so big, Du Guoying exclaimed, looking at the office area on the first floor. This is just a research and development company. The headquarters of the group is not far from here. At present, the group's subsidiaries include research and development companies, sales companies, plastic companies, copper companies, overseas international companies, communication companies, etc. The subordinate sales stores will be broken by the end of this year. There are 20,000 homes, and in the fields of home appliances, electronics, communications, etc., we are the largest in China, ranking first in the whole of Asia, Lu Feng said, and went to the door of the living room, pushed open the door and entered. Du Guoying was dumbfounded. He knew that Lu Feng was very rich, but he didn't expect the company to be so big. Kevin glanced around and walked in. He had expectations for the size of GFN Electronics. This company is either a complete liar, or a very large company in the mainland area, or poach him. It doesn't make sense. Sit down, both of you are on holiday. No one will bring tea. I'll go get a few bottles of water. By the way, the food and beverage maker is also my company. Lu Feng smiled at the two of them and went out. Du Guoying looked at the luxurious living room and said to Kevin, I don't think you will lose money even if you really come to such a big company. It's not much different from the Volkswagen Group, right? Kevin looked at him as if he had never seen the world before, and couldn't help but said, don't look at the surface. The development of any large group ultimately depends on its internals, product competitiveness, industry layout, profitability, etc. There are many in the world. Many large enterprises, which look extremely large, are actually empty shells that may collapse at any time. Kevin was also wondering, although he didn't know much about the electronics industry, he had never heard of GFN Electronics products, especially the lesser-known main products in the world. I was thinking secretly, should I go to a consulting company to inquire about this company or Lu Feng? He rejected the idea as soon as it came out. I don't plan to join in, so it's none of my business to do research. Lu Feng took a few bottles of water, and as soon as he walked out, he met Zhu Lidong, who came in a hurry. Mr. Lu, what are you looking for from me? Zhu Lidong asked Lu Feng, who seemed to be trotting after getting out of the car, panting a little. Let me tell you, this year, I met someone. Isn't there a lack of a person in charge of the overseas marketing department at the moment? Guess who I met? Lu Feng asked mysteriously. Who is it? Zhu Lidong was a little curious and wondered, you won't catch the president of Sony or Motorola's overseas marketing department, will you? These two companies don't have branches here. Where can I catch them? Let me tell you, the overseas marketing department of the Volkswagen Group. As for who is the consultant, or the president, I don't know. Anyway, this person, I want to stay, Lu Feng said to him. Zhu Lidong understood, our gang is going to be a newcomer. A foreigner, Zhu Lidong asked. Right. My English is very general, and I stumble. He can speak Chinese and is fluent. What do you mean by asking you to come, do you understand? Lu Feng patted him on the shoulder and said, come in with me. Pushing open the door and walking in, Lu Feng put the water on the table and said to the two of them, let me introduce you to both of you. This is the senior vice president of our group, Zhu Lidong, who is currently in charge of the domestic home appliance market. Hello, hello, Zhu Lidong shook hands with Kevin first, the two introduced each other, and then politely greeted Du Guoying. Our company is already very large now, and it is an absolute leading company in the mainland area. The overseas market is also making efforts. At present, it is relatively competitive with some companies internationally, such as Motorola, Sony, Panasonic, Siemens, Samsung, etc. Even if Mr. Kevin doesn't join us, it doesn't really matter, he can introduce us to more capable candidates in the overseas market, Lu Feng said to Kevin. Before Kevin could speak, Zhu Lidong was the first to lie beside Lu Feng's ear and whispered in a voice that everyone could hear, Mr. Lu, the person in charge of the overseas market, the competition is fierce, the president of Sharp's overseas strategy department a few days ago. Call me and want to join us, and he's a car dealer who doesn't understand electronics. It has nothing to do with the industry, I think it's a peer. We and Sharp are in a competitive relationship, not to mention that Sharp is still being beaten by us internationally. What if there is something wrong with this person? Lu Feng muttered. I don't think it should. Our salary is high. The annual salary is more than 1 million plus equity dividends. There are many people rushing to come, Zhu Lidong whispered. More than 1 million plus equity dividends? When Kevin heard this number, his expression became solemn, and he sat there and listened even more. More than 1 million US dollars is a lot for others. Look at you, you have never seen the world. I still think that we should find someone who is more capable. After all, our overseas market is too large and generally small. The people from the company can't be managed when they come here. You know, managing 100 people and managing 10,000 people are completely two concepts. Lu Feng looked at him and criticized, you always do things like this, I haven't seen you live well, Frizzy. Yes, I will definitely change, but our overseas market, the sales of tens of billions of dollars, may double this year. It is really hard to manage such a large scale, Zhu Lidong said with a grievance on his face. It's all right, don't talk anymore, let's go back to the meeting. Lu Feng stopped the topic, smiled at the two and said, I'm sorry, there are indeed many things in the company, and the overseas market has not done it yet. Fully autonomous operation, I have to worry about. Du Guoying was numb when he sat there. The numbers Lu Feng said were beyond the limit of his imagination to him. Mr. Lu, are the company's products selling so well overseas? Kevin asked with some doubts. Your products are not called GFN, right? It's not called GFN, the TV is called Wiaputa, and the VCD is called Jinbeo. I don't seem to have heard of these two brands in other countries, nor have I seen any publicity. Kevin wondered. What our company adopts is the productization of following the local customs. Unlike other international brands, every time we go to a country, we change a product name that is more in line with the country, and there are more brands. The advantage of this is that we can integrate more quickly. Local market, Lu Feng explained. In such a big industry, you are still very low-key. It seems that Forbes has never seen you. Kevin continued to ask. Mr. Kevin, I didn't expect you to believe in Forbes. Lu Feng leaned on the sofa and said with a smile, there isn't a James Rothschild on Forbes, right now he belongs to the Rothschild family. Controller. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 744. Kevin smiled awkwardly when he heard this. Just look at some of Forbes' lists. They don't represent the quality of the world's richest. Kevin didn't want to ask any more questions. Since he wanted to help Du Guoying, let him go. It was a very simple matter for him. As long as you talk to Lu Feng loosely, the rest is up to Du Guoying's own good fortune. He is also worthy of his conscience. Mr. Lu, I didn't expect your company to grow so big. I really underestimated it, Kevin said to Lu Feng. If your company is willing, I can try to understand the company's situation. No problem, as long as you are willing to come, that's our honor. Lu Feng smiled and said, can you go through the induction first? No, I mean, first conduct a short-term inspection of your company. Then make a decision. However, I have a small request. Kevin pondered for a while, glanced at Du Guoying and said, Du Guoying, a young man, is still very good. If you join GFN Electronics, it will also be a great help for your company. This matter, no problem, as long as you can come. He has absolutely no problem at all. Lu Feng glanced at the time and said, it's almost noon, let's talk in the afternoon and eat first. Mr. Lu, you have something to do this afternoon, Zhu Lidong said aside. New Year's Eve, what's the matter? Lu Feng wondered. It's about Buffett. Yoshida Dong I called and threatened again. Zhu Lidong was a little helpless. He was really speechless about this person. I don't even care about Buffett, let alone he's a devil, so don't pay attention, Lu Feng said and walked towards the door. Kevin raised his eyebrows, holding back a smile in his heart. Lu Feng's pretending really made him laugh. Little do they know that Lu Feng really didn't pretend. On the way to the hotel, Lu Feng sat in the back row and instructed Zhu Lidong, in a moment, you can get a camera and put it on the shelf behind the living room. It must be able to capture Kevin's upper body. What are you doing? Zhu Lidong wondered. Record him a resignation report. In the other car, Du Guoying looked at Kevin next to him and kept thanking him, while Kevin was quite complacent and said with a smile, it's just a trifle, I've traveled all over the world, what kind of people have you never met? It's done today. Really, being able to stay with a big man like you for a few days is really beneficial. No matter in terms of bearing, self-confidence, and layout, people feel high, too high, as several floors. Du Guoying flattery. Kevin felt at ease in his heart. He felt that the light of mercy behind him was shining brightly at the moment. With a little trick, he changed the fate of an ordinary person. The kind of self-satisfaction in his heart made him feel a little high. How should I put it? That kind of feeling is like the self-indulgence after going to the river to release raw fish. This company is still very good, work hard, I hope you can make some achievements, and live up to my expectations for you. Kevin sighed as he looked at the burning fireworks on the road outside the car window. Wait until the spring festival of a certain year, you can also become me now. You are a great wisdom, I'm afraid it will be difficult to match in my life. Du Guoying said, slightly inferior. I'll help you when I'm having dinner, and I'll find a way to let you join the company today. After the 15th day of the first lunar month, I have other things to do. After I let you join today, I'll go back and handle the resignation. As long as my resignation, if the formalities are not completed in one day, you can work in the company for one more day. Kevin thought for a while and said, this trick is called Jinchan's shelling. Yes, Jinchan's shelling. Ha ha ha, hi, it's really too high. Du Guoying continued to praise. In Kevin's eyes, tricking a Lu Feng is not easy, not to mention that he still asks for himself, and in the end he leads him by the nose. When they arrived at the hotel, Lu Feng greeted the two of them into the private room. Du Guoying looked at Lu Feng with some hesitation. He knew very well that if Lu Feng didn't want him, Kevin would be useless. Jump carefully, and the other party sees it. Boss Lu, let me tell you something, Du Guoying whispered, pulled Lu Feng out of the private room, and told the whole thing. In addition to the previous agreement between the two, it seemed that he was cooperating in the whole process. Similar. Don't worry, he can't run. Lu Feng patted him on the shoulder and said, "You go first, I'll go to the toilet." As the food was served, the atmosphere on the table improved. Kevin talked and laughed more like his own, and even talked about the future development of GFN electronics in the overseas market at the dinner table. 10 minutes later, Zhu Lidong opened the door and walked in, sitting next to Lu Feng and giving him a look. "Everything is arranged. I'm sorry, there is a temporary matter, and it has been dealt with," Zhu Lidong said, holding up the wine glass. "I will punish myself for one." "You're still busy on the first day of the new year?" "What's the matter?" Kevin said with a face full of teasing. "Go and reprimand Buffett." "That's not true, it's just to help a person handle the resignation," Zhu Lidong said and laughed. "Mr. Lu, do you still fire people in your company during the New Year's Eve?" Kevin said to Lu Feng. "I'm afraid this brother do join the job today and will be fired tomorrow." "That can't be, you have your face here." Lu Feng looked at Du Guoying and said, "I also found that you are indeed a rare talent, and I do have a job for you." Mr. Kevin said, "So, I'm sure it's properly arranged." "Thank you, Mr. Lu." Du Guoying stood up and picked up the glass. "I'll give you a toast." The two of them had a drink and sat down again. Kevin said through the conversation, "Since there is a position, let him join first today. As for me, I will first understand the situation of our company overseas, check it out, and make sure there is no problem. I went back and resigned. You also know that in my current position, resignation is very troublesome and may take a while." I understand," Lu Feng said with his chopsticks between the dishes. "Du Guoying can talk anytime. Drink first, come and come." There was another booze at the scene. This meal was eaten for 2 hours. Zhu Lidong sat on the side and kept blowing. "Which country's economy depends on our company, which is the backbone of global electronics, and is on an equal footing with the current major companies, and will become a global electronics company in the future. The unicorn of the industry." Some bragging. Lu Feng couldn't even listen to him when he sat aside. He had to talk about marketing, not to mention trains, planes, and cannons running around casually. "Let's go to the company to talk." Lu Feng took Kevin downstairs and insisted on sitting in the same car with him. The two of them sat in the back row. Lu Feng said to him in English, "Don't underestimate me, my English is good. You are in Chinese these 2 days. I have to show my English. From now on, we will communicate in English." Kevin didn't expect Lu Feng to care about such a trivial matter, but he didn't think too much about it. Speaking fluent English in China is indeed something worth showing off, and even sometimes he is foreign to the natives. Sentence to show his foreign style. Entering the living room, Kevin sat down in Lu Feng's original position. "You can't sit here, you sit opposite, this is where the master sits, you are the guest." Lu Feng took his arm and said, "This is the rule, understand?" "It's the first time I've heard of it." Kevin was a little surprised, but he sat obediently opposite, facing the camera hidden on the bookshelf behind Lu Feng. "Did you have a good time working at Volkswagen?" Lu Feng asked in English. "It's okay. After all, I also helped them develop the Asian market. You may not know that the person who was in contact with Fa was me." Kevin sat opposite, looking a little lonely. "He has been in Volkswagen for many years, but did not get further promotion. If I were you, I wouldn't do it. For such a big credit, you have been in charge of Asian overseas affairs for so many years. It's a bit unreasonable." Lu Feng said, a little picky. Kevin took advantage of the wine to stimulate the discomfort in his heart. He rubbed his face with his hands, and the whole person seemed very unhappy. Suppressed. "I said everything today, when Jonas was only the chief officer of overseas strategy, and the report on the Asian auto market was written and submitted by me. I also executed the execution. He didn't do anything. As a result, after reaching a cooperation with FA, he was transferred to the European division as the executive president. What about me? I am just a small vice president of the Asian division. In 2018, I increased car sales in Asia. I thought I could be transferred to the headquarters and entered the high-level headquarters, but he was still in charge of Asian affairs. Instead, he became the CEO of the Volkswagen Group. What ability does he have? Why does he? Just because his wife has an affair with a minister? I know it all. Don't think I'm stupid, I'm better informed than anyone else. Lu Feng never imagined that he would be able to hear such powerful insider news. At this moment, the quiet needle falling in the living room could be heard. On the surface, it seemed that Kevin was frantically complaining to Lu Feng and several others, but in fact he was in front of him. Towards the camera. I don't want to do it for a long time, really, I just haven't found a suitable company. Now I think GFN Electronics is very good. I will investigate it, and if it is suitable, I will immediately change jobs. Kevin did not forget to be confused. Lu Feng. Lu Feng felt that it was almost there, just relying on his passionate remarks just now, not to mention resignation, dismissal is enough. I also very much welcome talents like you to join us, Lu Feng said politely. It takes time for me to join the company. I can let Du Guoying join the company first. Let me get used to it. I am familiar with him, and I can communicate with him if there is anything. Kevin continued to help Du Guoying pave the way. Okay, no problem. Lu Feng looked at Du Guoying and said, tomorrow you will go through the entry procedures. I promise you that when you become the vice president, you will be the vice president and be in charge of the marketing department for pagers. Du Guoying never expected happiness to come so suddenly. He originally thought that if Kevin joined, he would at most be taken in, but he didn't expect that he would become an advanced company. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 745. Du Guoying had his own plans. He originally wanted to take advantage of Kevin's potential to join in. He would hang around for a few months, stay as long as he could, and leave if he couldn't. In his heart, Lu Feng just used himself as a gun. But now he actually took the first step into the door. Du Guoying was a little confused, but she was still surprised in the depths of her heart. She hurriedly stood up and said, thank you, Boss Lu, I will work hard and live up to the expectations of the two of you. Okay, sit down. Lu Feng looked at him and said, prepare your ID card information tomorrow. If you don't have it, just call your home. The ID number is fine. I'll handle it for you in person. Onboarding. Work hard. Kevin looked at Du Guoying and said to Lu Feng, I will collect some news about home appliances in the past 2 days and do some research in the international market. After the company fully resumes work, I will come back to do it again. A field investigation will take a little time, mainly because of my current position. If I leave, it will be very troublesome to hand over the work, and I just do this during this time. No problem, it's fine. I know it's more troublesome for you to resign, after all, it's such an important position. Oh, yes, I almost forgot. Lu Feng asked Zhu Lidong, did you bring any money with you? Pay for someone else's camera. Money. I didn't bring it. Zhu Lidong actually had money on him. He needed to give people red envelopes for the past 2 days. How could he not bring cash? But he also knew that Lu Feng, who borrowed money, had a very low chance of returning it. Let's talk about it later, it's only 10,000 to 20,000 yuan. Kevin didn't plan to ask for this money anymore. He felt that Lu Feng didn't want to give it. 1 yard is 1 yard, and what should be compensated has to be compensated. The problem is that the finance is not working now, so I will find someone to collect some money. Lu Feng looked at Zhu Lidong, pondered for a while, and said, call Lu Chang, didn't I send 1,000 red envelopes to each of them this morning, so, borrow it first. It's not suitable. Zhu Lidong felt embarrassed for him, and whispered, Mr. Lu, you have to pay back the money. The red envelopes they just took in the morning are still hot. I'm the kind of person who doesn't repay the loan. We can talk about it internally. Liukan people are honest, you have to tell the doctors, I'm in a hurry for a while, everyone volunteers. The money owed will be paid. When the time comes, Lu Feng commanded, go ahead. Zhu Lidong thought about it, this red envelope suddenly changed from private money to company money. In terms of reckoning, President Lu is still amazing. 10 minutes later, all the original 30,000 yuan was in hand. The boss was in difficulty. No matter how stupid people were, they knew what to do. Not to mention that the money was paid in one lump sum when the salary was paid. Lu Feng counted 16,000 and handed it to Kevin and said, I'm a person, I'm very particular, I understand. As he spoke, he pocketed the remaining 20,000 yuan. Kevin nodded again and said, then this can be regarded as a result. It's really nice to meet the two of you this spring festival. Would you like to have dinner together? No problem, I'll take care of something here. Let's go to the one at noon, not many restaurants are open during Chinese New Year. Lu Feng instructed the two of them. Du Guoying took Kevin downstairs, and when he got to the elevator, he asked Kevin to go down first, turned his head and trotted towards Lu Feng. Is something wrong? Lu Feng looked at him and wondered. Boss Lu, is it true or false that I will come to apply for the job tomorrow? Du Guoying asked tentatively. Her words were very false, for fear of getting some news that she didn't want to hear. Really, go back and prepare, Lu Feng said to him. Is it really the position of vice president? Du Guoying's mood at the moment was a little uncontrollable. Yes, Lu Feng nodded, looked at him and smiled. Thank you. Du Guoying couldn't bear it any longer. He finally had an opportunity and turned around and left. Lu Feng found that Zhu Lidong was standing there and looked at Du Guoying with a bit of emotion, and said, don't look at it, who hasn't been young yet, work, turn off the camera first. Zhu Lidong took out the camera, and then put the videotape into the camera. The shot was just enough to capture Kevin's upper body. He was sitting there very formally. Let's start with rubbing his face. As the beginning, cut the tapes and make them into videotapes and send them to the headquarters as soon as possible. I asked him to send a resignation email to their internal mailbox tonight. I need help to find this. Lu Feng stood up and said, this is a beautiful thing. Mr. Lu, are you sure this person can do it? Besides, I'm afraid that he will be emotional. Zhu Lidong worried. I don't know if this person can work in the home appliance industry, but I know that in the international field, he is definitely better than our two majors. As for emotions, no matter how ugly his face is, even if he throws a pile of money, he can greet people with a smile. So, let's do it. Lu Feng stood up and went out to live, suddenly turned around and said, don't go to dinner at night, you are busy with these things. Forget it, you won't be allowed to eat a single meal. Zhu Lidong sighed. He knew that Lu Feng was quite frugal in some things, especially spending his own money. This dinner was very enjoyable, and everyone was fine. Kevin was unspeakably happy while drinking. He felt that he had won, and he helped the young man Du Guoying, and he didn't pay anything, he spent several days of food. Du Guoying doesn't care who wins, she is definitely the winner anyway. Lu Feng is also a winner. Two capable talents are just in hand. Everyone is a winner. If you are in a good mood, everything will be fine. It was after 9 o'clock in the evening that Lu Feng returned to the villa, sat on the sofa and burped. The two of them were done, and then they were busy with important things. The phone at home suddenly rang, and Lu Feng was a little puzzled. who would call this place, but he still answered, "Who is it?" "You really are at home?" Su Yorong's voice came from the phone. "I'll be passing through Shenzhen tomorrow and staying at your place for 2 days, how is it? We haven't seen each other for a long time. Didn't you go home for the New Year? Tomorrow is the second day of the Lunar New Year. It's time to visit relatives. Are you going back to Xiangjiang?" Lu Feng wondered. "I'll be back on the 23rd of the 12th lunar month. There is a lot of business on United Capital's side. How can I leave it behind? If it's related to the New Year's Eve, I must go back early. I'll stay at your place for 2 days." Su Yorong seemed to be, "I have already made up my mind about it." Don't, I've been busy these 2 days. I'll have a chance after the New Year." Lu Feng declined. "Talking about other things with you makes it seem like I'm eating people, so it's settled, see you tomorrow." Su Yorong hung up the phone after she finished speaking. Listening to the blind tone on the phone, Lu Feng sighed inwardly, feeling a little helpless. This woman is haunted. On the second day of the Lunar New Year, worship the god of wealth, go back to the mother's house, and even go to the god of wealth to invite the god of wealth in some more particular places. After 9 o'clock in the morning, Lu Feng arrived at the company and called Zhu Lidong and Lu Cheng over first. The videotape had been cut, and he checked it again to make sure it was okay, and the email address was also checked. "It's mailed out today, I'll go write the mail." Lu Feng looked at Zhu Lidong and said, "Tell me the market situation of the pager years ago, and I'll take a look." After giving instructions, Lu Feng entered an office, turned on the computer and started surfing the internet. Computers are definitely a luxury nowadays, and for ordinary people, they are even rarer than big brothers. That is to say, there are several units in the research and development company, and the headquarters are not equipped with computers. Now this thing is maddeningly slow, and it's easy to get stuck. After going through a dial-up connection, web page request, terminal response, and other processes, the mailbox was finally opened, and Lu Feng was typing English crackling on the keyboard. Lu Cheng was stunned to see his fast typing speed. His familiarity with the keyboard was by no means something ordinary people could have. Those engineers tended to touch computers a lot, and they all beat them one by one. As for himself, after finishing one, he had to lower his head to find the next. Where can there be someone like Lu Feng, whose fingers are flying, completely touch typing, and the computer can't keep up with the response? This is obviously an ability that I don't know how many years I have been immersed in a computer, but Mr. Lu didn't say that he came from an ordinary family. This is the familiarity of the computer. I am afraid that it is not an ordinary person. In half an hour, Lu Feng wrote a letter of resignation with more than 2,000 words. The general meaning is, "I have endured you for a long time, I have quit, and a videotape will be mailed to you as a final farewell." After clicking send, Lu Feng breathed a sigh of relief. "Mr. Lu, what is the pile of things you debugged just now?" Lu Cheng asked curiously. "Background programming data. I'm afraid that this page will be lost, so I wrote it for nothing, that is, the page is locked," Lu Feng said casually. No matter what, as the boss of an internet company in his last life, he still knew a little bit of code. "Mr. Lu, are you sure you have a primary school education?" Lu Cheng questioned. "Don't care about your education. Life is a long marathon. What you need is constant learning, you know." Lu Feng stood up and said, "You also need to learn more. This computer will be a big trend in the future." "I'll study more." Lu Cheng nodded. The more he knew about Lu Feng, the more he felt that this person's experience did not match his ability. Lu Feng was in a good mood. He walked out of the office humming a song and went to find Zhu Lidong. As the end of the year approached, it was definitely the best time to sell TVs, pagers, big brothers, and even leather jackets. Because people want to go back to the village, they want to show up. As long as people's faces are taken care of, products will certainly not be backlogged in warehouses. Lu Feng can still understand other things. He still can't understand the leather jacket. It's not so warm when wearing it. Wearing a sweater inside it will even get cold in the cold winter in the north. However, those men still happily oiled and maintained their leather jackets and shoes, and then put them on shiveringly. Some of the parents were still obsessed with leather jackets after 20 or 30 years, and some couldn't figure it out. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 746. On the way to the conference room, passing the elevator, I happened to meet Du Guoying, holding his documents in his hand. Seeing Lu Feng with a happy face, he hurriedly trotted over and said, "Hello, Boss Lu. I have everything ready." Lu Feng picked it up, flipped through it and said, "Let's go to the conference room together. This is a large conference room." Lu Feng casually pulled over a stool and sat down. He said, "Bring an ashtray here." Du Guoying looked around and didn't know where the ashtray was. "In the locker over there." The door was opened, and Zhu Lidong walked in with 2 folders. He saw Du Guoying smiled and sat down without speaking. After a while, Lu Cheng walked in and helped Du Guoying find the ashtray. The 3 finally took their seats. "Let's talk about Du Guoying's entry first." Lu Feng handed the information in his hand to Lu Chendao. "After the personnel goes to work, let him handle it. You can communicate more about this situation." When Zhu Lidong heard that Lu Feng handed Du Guoying over to Lu Cheng, he was stunned for a moment and said, "Mr. Lu, doesn't he join the marketing department of the headquarters? The communication company should be placed under the R/U0026D company, and look at the development later, so as not to fail. The annual report of the group headquarters is not good, and the investors will definitely be unhappy. Let him join the R/U0026D company first." Lu Feng looked at Du Guoying and said, "Communications, this is our main direction this year. The company has been registered, I am the person in charge, you are in charge of the market." "Thank you, Boss Lu, I will definitely live up to my expectations," Du Guoying said solemnly. Zhu Lidong still murmured when he heard such an assignment. He is in charge of the marketing department. Although he is mainly in charge of home appliances, it stands to reason that the marketing department of the entire group should be under his management. The marketing department was separated by Lu Feng. "How's the waveguide?" Lu Feng asked Zhu Lidong. "The sales in the first 2 months of the Chinese New Year were very good." Zhu Lidong returned to his senses, opened the folder and said, "The sales in January once again exceeded 50,000 units. The technical update has led to very good market feedback this time, which is very popular. They are currently in demand. Still in the process of increasing production capacity. I heard that the assembly line has been ordered from abroad. The situation of Motorola and Panasonic is still the same, and the market has a stable demand. The big sale of the waveguide is caused by the price reduction, and some market thresholds have been expanded invisibly, resulting in more people flowing in. There is news. It is not good news for us that Shi Watanabe of the Rome Group has joined Motorola and is in charge of overseas markets. Some research institutions have further raised their market expectations for home appliances this year. Last year, they estimated that the sales volume of color TV sets exceeded 10 million sets. The actual sales volume of color TV sets exceeded 17 million sets last year. The growth rate is higher than their expected growth rate. 70% of them are Changhong TV, which sold more than 7 million units last year, and is still a giant in the home appliance industry. However, this year's single-day sales have stabilized at 5,000 units. Although the market is fierce, we are confident that it will reach a minimum of 3 million units this year. And from the market share surveys given by major institutions, Changhong Home Appliances market share in the country, the status cannot be shaken. Konka, TCL, and other companies in the south still have the main market in the south. The market share of Panda TV has further declined. This report also predicts the pager market. They believe that this year will be the first year of the pager outbreak. Last year, pager sales were 1.73 million units, and this year is expected to double. But I think it will double. Too few, and they always underestimate the market. Waveguide opens the market with high technology, high stability, low price, and large wholesale. The main promotion is high quality as a breakthrough. Their fatal disadvantage is after sales. Because it is a large wholesale, there is basically a problem, and it is difficult to find a manufacturer, but in recent years, more and more stores are repairing pagers. Gao Jiwei took a last look at the report and concluded, the market demand is very large. Some institutions even believe that pagers will be the mainstream in the next 10 years, because the technical cost of voice calls is too high, and the country is vigorously laying out public telephone halls. Pagers combined with public telephones are the future form of domestic communication. After listening to his report, Lu Feng lit a cigarette, took a puff and said, they sell 50,000 units a month, not because the market can only accept 50,000 units, but because they can only produce 50,000 units. Production, and at the same time keep up with production. Zhu Lidong pondered for a while, and said, Mr. Lu, our 2 factories were enough last year, but this year, not so much. Not only the sales volume of Vipta has increased, but also overseas markets. I estimate that our products will be available this year. Production is twice as much as last year, or even more. Zhu Lidong is right, this year's GFN Electronics is completely different from last year's. Last year, it was fully producing VCDS, while Wipta's output was less than 1 million units. Other home appliances were also in a mess. Not to mention the production of export products. Mr. Lu, why don't you get another factory area? President Zhang called me some time ago, saying that the leader over there was chatting with him, and he hoped that we would come over, Lu Cheng said. President Zhang? Which Mr. Zhang? Lu Feng wondered. Zhang Wanmen, isn't it your best brother? Lu Cheng looked at him speechlessly. Oh, Lu Feng reacted and said, what does he mean, go to Hefei? Didn't we set up a VCD base over there? Now it's completely based in Anhui, radiating to the surrounding areas, as an assembly and logistics transfer station. They mean that we will move some industrial lines there. Liukin thought about it. Thinking, also, I called you several times, but you didn't answer. I want to ask when the VCD bonus will be paid. Dividends. Lu Feng remembered that the VCD factory still has half of the shares, but these shares are all dividends, and the leading power is still in the hands of GFN Electronics. Dividends will definitely be distributed to him, and it's not that I don't answer his calls. It's mainly because I'm busy, so you can talk to others. No dividends will be distributed this year, mainly because the funds need to be used for development. If he asks again, you can say that next year will definitely give it to him. His dividends are no less than 50 million. Liukin was a little helpless. GFN Electronics was making crazy money by relying on VCDS. It was not appropriate for him to write a bad check to others. How many points? Lu Chenggui said, many people now say that he was fooled by you back then, and if he gave them the technical rights, he wouldn't even know how many hundreds of millions of points would be distributed. Lu Feng sighed, the company is really struggling. If it wants to open a new factory, it will be another investment. The current situation in China is different from the previous years, and the effort is definitely not that big. Unless it is to go to some small places, but Lu Feng still doesn't want to go to small places. Then wait for the end of the year after the financial work, give him a certain percentage of dividends, first give him a sum of money, no more than 20 million, you know. Lu Feng asked Lu Cheng, at present, after our pager goes offline, what is the cost price? The price of the product itself is actually not expensive. Although some raw materials are a little better than the raw materials of TV sets, it does not count the technical investment and network access fees. Things are only tens of dollars. Lu Cheng smiled and said, a bunch of them. What is the value of plastic sheets? It is the investment in technology that is valuable. How much is the manufacturer's network access fee now? Lu Feng asked. The prices of the major paging stations are different now. I estimate it is several million, such as 198/199/126/127. Lu Cheng thought about it and said, I was talking to them about pricing a few days ago. Bird is now in the end market, like 2008, right? 2909, Zhu Lidong said. If there were no technical barriers, this would be the most lucrative thing in the world. Lu Feng sighed with a smile. Now our biggest investment is how to recover the 400 million yuan. The pricing is also a problem. I think it is the same price as the waveguide. We have more advantages in sales channels. Zhu Lidong thought for a while and said, I think at the same price, we can hit the market more quickly, and the funds will be returned faster. Lu Feng agreed with him a little, looked at Du Guoying beside him and asked, what do you think? Tell me. I don't know if what I said is right or not. It's all my own thoughts, and I can't compare it with the boss's. Du Guoying said more implicitly. It's all right, although I said, it's not officially going to work today, or just sitting there and chatting casually. Lu Feng leaned back on the chair, picked up the cigarettes on the table, scattered one of them, and said with Erlang's legs crossed, also. There's nothing wrong. Then I'll tell you what I think. President Lu just said that apart from the technical cost, the physical cost is very cheap, which means that there is still room for decline, and we spent 400 million to buy the technology. This cost is really it's too big. In any product competition, the price war must be the first. Since the physical cost is low and our technology cost is high, I think we will be very passive in the follow-up price war. So the product can no longer be a product by itself. If you want to keep the price from being too much invaded by the competition in the same industry, you need to give the product other aspects to conduct a differentiated competition, just like steamed buns and bread. I don't know if what I said is right or not. My idea is that the listing will bring shocks and reduce the price, but we must stabilize the price, such as 2,600. If the price drops, it will not make people think that we are cheap, but you have to tell the market that at this price, those people lied to you. Then give the product some other points, and you need to grasp the characteristics of the product audience. Du Guoying pondered for a while and said, it's the point for them to buy this thing. Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent Mobile Version Reading Website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 747. Lu Feng nodded secretly on the side. This person's idea was not formed in a day, but now he has this kind of market awareness. In terms of market positioning, we will talk about it later. If we open a new factory now, will it be able to start production this year? Lu Feng asked the two of them. Neither of them knew about this matter, and Wei Yandan was in charge. It depends on how the local municipal government cooperates. This matter is very complicated. Especially since the beginning of this year, the investment attraction of major cities has not been so great. Internally, it has not been so great, mainly to attract foreign investment, Zhu Lidong said after thinking for a while. We have also exceeded this foreign exchange indicator this year, and it will be a problem if the import assembly line is. Lu Feng could only sigh. Some wool had to be plucked quickly, otherwise it would not be allowed to pluck. In just a few years, the big policy side has changed. The previous set doesn't work anymore. However, those Lu Fengs from the past few years also have a rich background, and now they have become the backbone of all walks of life. Since the country has raised them, they will naturally not continue to feed, and they need to start to grow muscles. If we go to a small place, I don't think it's a big problem. Our right to speak is still relatively heavy. It's no problem to let the city do something and move some resources, Zhu Lidong suggested to Lu Feng. Don't go to a small place, this time I choose a city. We must have a long-term plan. Anyway, if we can't produce this year, then we will get a big factory. The project is bigger, and it will add some muscle to the group. If I'm short of money, I can tell the public valuation. Lu Feng took a puff of cigarette, put it out in the ashtray and said, have you been in contact with Tianjin? We have dealers in Tianjin, and I have been there a few times. The leaders there are not easy to deal with. They are all rich people, but they are not like Shenzhen, who just got rich. Zhu Lidong obviously did not nourish in small places there. You can ask, but it doesn't work. I'll take a trip and designate this place as the main production base in the future. Lu Feng knew in his heart that, with the current level of automation of the assembly line, a company of the size of GFN Electronics has more than 100,000 employees. Sooner or later, 2,000 years later, after the automation of the assembly line is realized, a large number of layoffs will be carried out. The problem is that now the wages of workers have become the biggest expenditure burden of GFN Electronics. The advantages of building a factory in Tianjin are obvious. It has the largest port and terminal, and the movement of goods is very convenient. At the same time, Tianjin is a heavy industry city in the north, with complete industrial facilities and a very large population. It can be said that Shenzhen is far inferior to Tianjin in terms of heavy industry. Except for the northeast, most of the automobile industry is located in Tianjin. Tianjin Daihatsu, FA Volkswagen, imported cars, and later Xiaoli all come from here. At the same time, this is the world of steel. Not only Tianjin, but the whole of Yanbei can be said to be a steel-making furnace. There was a joke that China ranked first in global steel production, followed by Hebei, and the third was concealed by Hebei. It may be difficult to describe how advanced the city is and how many companies there are, but there is a standard that can prove its strength and status. It already had a subway in 1976, the only city in the country with a subway. The four of them chatted a lot in the new factory area and the pager market. After lunch, there was nothing to do in the afternoon, and Liukin had to work overtime to get the pager. On the sixth day at the headquarters, Wei Yandan should come back to clean up the situation, and Zhu Lidong is also busy with the response of the home appliance market after the new year. After 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Lu Feng drove back to the villa. The car was parked at the door. He saw a beautiful woman standing in front of the house. She was wearing a calf-length pale yellow Nazai coat with a white turtleneck and thin sweater inside. The lower body was showing her figure. The tight-fitting trousers, a pair of pointed high-heeled shoes on the feet, the big sunglasses on the face, and the wavy curly hair are quite international fashion. Lowering the car window, Lu Feng looked at the man, and the other party saw him. He took a few steps forward and lay on the car window. Nazai's coat was lifted, revealing the rolling hills. "It's you," Lu Feng leaned on his seat and said, "Didn't I tell you not to come? This year has passed, and the dress is so foreign, I almost didn't recognize it. When you need me, you think of me, and when you don't need it, forget me." Su Yorong stood up straight, turned around and asked, "How is it? Does it look good?" "Good looking, I think it looks much better than those evening dresses you wear." Lu Feng looked at her, and he had to say that wearing this dress on her, her whole personality was completely different. "I thought you were too scared to go home today. I'm going back for the Chinese New Year, so of course I have to dress up nicely. And this time, I brought hundreds of thousands of cash back and distributed them all to the village. They are complimenting me." Su Yorong's expression was a little smug. "I can't praise you. How are your parents?" Lu Feng opened the car door and walked out. "They are very good. I have given the family a lot of money before. The past 2 days have been very good. My sixth sister has given birth to a child." Su Yorong said to Lu Feng, "Where's the key to the house?" "Tired?" Lu Feng took out the key from his pocket and opened the door. There were still some uncleaned meals left on the dining table. Du Guoying just brought some tableware and chopsticks to the kitchen. The ashtray was full of cigarette butts. Such a good house, let you spoil it like this. Su Yorong shook his head as he looked at the scene in front of him, and said, a man has no woman beside him, he's almost like a pig. You stay in a hotel. I'll find a cleaner to clean it up when the time comes. Lu Feng sat on the sofa and said, I haven't been in the mood to do this lately. Don't you care? You haven't cleaned it, have you? Su Yorong took off his coat and hung it on the hanger, glanced at it, put on his slippers and said, let me help you clean up. You still clean up? Lu Feng was a little surprised. Nonsense, it's as if I was born with a golden key. We have 8 brothers and sisters. Not only do I have to clean up the house, but I also have to take care of my younger siblings. After arranging it in one place, scrubbing the dining table, he said, at that time, I carried my 6th sister up the mountain to cut hogweed, and it was hard. Instead, you looked like a wealthy family, and you didn't know how to do any housework. I'm doing big things. You gotta, don't talk about it. When I was a child, my dad came back from the field and sat at the door to enjoy the shade. I'm gone. Su Yorong washed the rag and said, now I have money, but I'm lazy. Because I have suffered hardships, I want to climb up. You've had a wonderful year this year. Lu Feng was sitting on the sofa smoking the chimney. I went back to the village, gave money to the villagers, invited our local biggest stage to sing for 5 days, but it was very lively. If you don't return home, it's like walking in brocade clothes at night. When will you go back to your hometown and show it off? Su Yorong turned his head and teased, when the time comes, let the leaders in your county and city accompany you, it will be more beautiful. Ha 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 ha, Lu Feng laughed. He once had such thoughts, but unfortunately, he doesn't have much nostalgia for his original hometown now. Su Yorong worked very neatly. In less than an hour, the living room was clean. She went upstairs to find Zhang Xiaoyan's pajamas and put on her pajamas. She turned on the TV and sat on the sofa. She casually saw the red plastic bag next to her and opened it. At a glance, there is a half-knitted sweater inside. Lu Feng just sat there watching. The house seemed to be less cold for a moment, singing came from the TV, and the Spring Festival Gala was being replayed. What are you looking at me for? Su Yorong looked back at Lu Feng and said, do you think I'm wearing her clothes? If you don't want me to wear them, then I won't wear them, because I'm afraid you won't be able to stand it. Let's wear it. After Lu Feng finished speaking, he turned his eyes to the TV. Didn't you go to see her during the New Year? How is the child? Su Yorong asked while lying on the sofa while watching TV. I went, stood downstairs, didn't go up. I'm still a little uncomfortable. Or have they already found a new lover? Have you two received a divorce certificate? Su Yorong asked curiously. I don't even have a marriage certificate. Where did you get a divorce certificate? The road is halfway to the sky. She should not be looking for it now. She is busy with the factory. Lu Feng's voice was a little low. Yo, this is still sad. If you want me to tell you, it's basically impossible for the two of you. She can't give birth, and it's always awkward in her heart. It doesn't make sense to get back together. Let's cook at home at night. What can you eat? Su Yorong looked at Lu Feng and asked. You're here to live with me, to make a fire and cook. Lu Feng sneered, just say what you want to do. I didn't want to do anything. Forget it, I'll go out and buy some food by myself. She put on her slippers, started changing clothes, glanced at the contents in the refrigerator, took the car keys and went out. After I bought some dishes, I made dumplings. At 7 o'clock in the evening, 4 dishes and dozens of hot dumplings were placed on the table. It was quite pleasant to eat and watch TV. Lu Feng didn't think about what she wanted to do, at least he wouldn't feel that the house was so cold at this moment. After chatting for a while after eating, and then taking a shower, Su Yorong walked out of the washroom, took off her makeup, tied a headband on her head, and said to Lu Feng, go to sleep. Go to sleep first. It's almost 10 o'clock. Don't talk about sleeping in the village. The couple is busy while the child is asleep. Don't look at it, go to bed quickly. She came over and pulled Lu Feng's arm to pull him up. In the bedroom, the lights were turned off, Su Yorong's head rested on Lu Feng's chest, and neither of them could sleep. What are you trying to do? Honestly, I can't sleep because of you. Lu Feng looked at the roof, for fear that she would wake up in the middle of the night and kill herself. It's nothing, do I have to have a purpose in doing things? It's just that this year has passed, and I feel very tired. I have disappeared for more than 2 years. My family doesn't care at all, and no one has ever looked for me. Su Yorong raised her head. Glancing at Lu Feng's face in the darkness, he asked, the tougher the outer shell, the emptier the heart, right? Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent Mobile Version Reading Website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 748. Lu Feng smiled bitterly and didn't know how to answer her. In fact, she and Lu Feng were the same kind of people, and they were always cautious, but such people were often not happy. What do you want to say? Want to sigh? Lu Feng leaned on the bedside, turned on the bedside lamp, picked up a cigarette on the bedside table, lit a cigarette, and said, don't people live like this, poor people? At that time, I felt that as long as I had money, I could endure anything. When I became rich, I couldn't even endure loneliness. Sometimes, I just want to be simple, without any benefits. The relationship between people is very pure. Su Yorong raised her head to look at Lu Feng and said, pure happiness. You want to be pure now, what about the next second? Everyone is on guard. You want to meet honestly, but when you meet honestly, you click. Who can bear the consequences? Lu Feng smoked. What consequences? I'm pregnant. Su Yorong stared blankly at Lu Feng, and seemed to be a little angry that he was talking about such a topic at this time. The next second, she couldn't help laughing. She rubbed against him and said, look for some simple happiness. Come on, I have to go to the company tomorrow. By the way, do you know someone in Tianjin? Lu Feng asked her. I don't know. Su Yorong was obviously not interested in work, so he pulled up the quilt and said, go to sleep, I don't want to talk about work. Why don't you know each other? When you shipped goods before, you had to go to all the major ports in the country, and the port over there is the largest in the country. Lu Feng put the cigarette in the ashtray, got into the bed and pressed against her, put his arms around her from behind and said, please help, I want to get a piece of land. You weren't so enthusiastic just now, I really don't know. It's useful, your face looks good if you don't need it. I can't help you. Su Yorong looked gloomy and was silent for a while, then suddenly turned over. He stared at him and asked, you and Zhang Xiaoyan are like this too. What? It's a treasure if you need it. If you don't need it, just lean on it and smoke. If you like it, you don't care. Su Yorong became angrier the more she thought about it. Can you be like her? You, Su Yorong was in a hurry. She kicked her foot when she raised her foot in the quilt, lifted the quilt, got out of bed, and left the room angrily. It was late at night. Su Yorong was standing in front of the armrest on the second floor smoking a cigarette. She was a woman after all, and when a woman was in need, when her heart was fragile, she hoped to have a shoulder to lean on. She passed by here also to seek this kind of warmth, not to intrigue. Going back for the new year, she found that her brothers and sisters had become families. They had nothing to say and changed their lives. They had their own homes and their own little days. At that moment, it seemed that there was only oneself left in the whole world. When everyone in the world around them was on a festival and confided their happiness or unhappiness to their other half, standing by themselves would be as embarrassing as another world. Su Yorong had to admit that people can change, especially after passing the 30-year-old mark. She didn't seem to have the dashing and ambition that she used to be alone, and she often couldn't sleep alone in the middle of the night. Many people get married not because of love, but because of loneliness. Lu Feng pushed open the door and walked out. Looking at her lonely back, he said, "Aren't you happy?" "I'm a woman after all." Su Yorong smoked a cigarette and seemed to want to sigh. Lu Feng could sense that her mood was not right. He sighed and said, "I am a man after all. In the end, I still need a man's shoulder to rely on," Su Yorong said sadly. "Like other men, I need a pair of tits to warm myself after all." Lu Feng imitated her sad tone. Su Yorong turned to look at him with an unstoppable smile on his face, and finally burst out laughing, and said angrily, "What do you think about all day long? When I am so sentimental, you say this kind of lewdness. If isn't it?" Lu Feng said to her, "Go back to the room and sleep." Early the next morning, Lu Feng was sitting at the dining table eating breakfast. "I was still thinking about the factory. There is a heater in the house, which is warmer than the outside." Su Yorong was wearing a pair of very short hot pants and a slightly cool suspender on her upper body. Fortunately, there was the sea outside, and no one passed by. Otherwise, her dress, coupled with the shape of the floor-to-ceiling windows of the villa, would easily make many people come and go. "Walk. Do you want to open a factory in Tianjin?" Su Yorong asked while eating. "Vipta sales have risen this year, and pagers will also start to be produced vigorously, coupled with overseas markets. It needs to be expanded, and I think Tianjin is very good," Lu Feng said casually, "but I don't know the people there, and the current policy, the wind has changed again. I do know some people, but it's all old, and now they don't necessarily recognize me, plus there are former enemies." Su Yorong sighed, "There are not many who can help you. You don't know Jin Ting Ting, look for her. The relationship has to be done with a steel blade, and you can't go to others for the big things. No one likes people who have a lot of bullshit. I have to do this myself, and I can't do it myself. After the 6th day of work, we have to arrange communication." Lu Feng put down his chopsticks and looked worried. "This year is really difficult. If you can't do anything about it, I'll give you a call. I don't know if it will be successful or not." Su Yorong wiped his mouth and said, "I don't know the municipal staff, but I know a few local bosses, and they are very relevant locally, they should know. You call and ask." After breakfast, Su Yorong sat there and thought for a while, then pressed the phone number. After the call was connected, she asked, "Is it President Li?" "Who are you?" There was a Tianjin accent on the other end of the phone. "Me, Su Yorong. Have a good New Year," Su Yorong said politely. "Oh, it's you. I haven't heard from you for a long time. How about recently?" Mr. Li asked very enthusiastically. "The two of us worked together well back then. I'm developing in Xiangjiang now. I'll call you. I just want to inquire about our policy over there. I want to go there and get a big factory." "Is it easy to get it now?" Su Yorong asked. "Sister, let me tell you, now it's not as good as before, it's more strict. Hey, if you're a big business, it's easier to get a few thousand mu of land, or tens of thousands of mu of land. Now it is strictly forbidden to apply land, people. The main reason is to hope that foreign capital will come." "What do you produce?" Mr. Li asked. "Electronics, home appliances, etc. It is estimated that it will occupy tens of thousands of acres." "Now, is the land given to domestic enterprises for free?" Su Yorong asked. "Sister, don't mention it, this place is no smaller than a small place. How can land be free? Not only is it not free for domestic enterprises, but local banks have also imposed restrictions on mortgage loans. Now people are crazy, and exchange land for land. Loans. Let me tell you, it doesn't work. They held a meeting and said that there are only such enterprises in the country. What's the point of fighting over and over? The focus is on attracting foreign capital, understand. Mr. Lee was full of resentment and scolded. This thing started with that Lu Feng, that fool has caused all kinds of troubles in the city, and the policy has been blocked for the past 2 years. Su Yorong gave Lu Feng a teasing look, and Lu Feng rolled his eyes. It's not easy to do, is it? Mr. Lee sighed and said, it's easy to do it, and it's not easy to do it. Anyway, the money that should be paid must not be the same as before. If you want to come here to build a factory, you will come here recently. Well, the leaders haven't started busy yet, let's have a meal together, we'll see the specific situation. Okay, that's what I asked for a friend. You've worked hard, and you can help more when the time comes. Su Yorong was polite. Hi. They're all friends, so hard or not, give me a call before you come, and I'll invite you to dinner. I want to know, is Chen Hong still here? It must be there, where can she go? Don't pay attention to her, it's all right, she can still eat, that person can't make pie. President Lee began to complain on the phone. To put it simply, at the time, Mr. Lee and Su Yorong had a cooperative relationship. He was in charge of the dock work, while Chen Hong should have a competitive relationship. The two gangs had also used force, and the relationship was particularly tense. Now these people have left the smuggling business and started their own business. Mr. Lee was inquiring about what Su Yorong was doing in Xiangjiang right now. Obviously, he wanted to find a new way out. After calling for more than an hour, Su Yorong hung up the phone and said, you heard it too, the previous model no longer works. The price of 1 mu of industrial land for a year is 50 yuan, 10,000 yuan. Mu is 500,000, and the minimum one-time payment is 20 years, which is 10 million. This 10 million is mortgaged to the bank, and the maximum loan is 5 million. Your arbitrage trick from the bank will not work. When Lu Feng heard this policy, he was worried for a while, but he didn't expect that they would set a price for industrial land. Before Lu Feng took several thousand acres of land and loaned tens of millions from the bank, it was no problem. It's because the price of these lands is unknown. You say it's worth a few dollars, and it's worth a few dollars. If the bank thinks it's not worth it, just eat a meal, drink some wine, find a relationship, and the value will double immediately. Now that the price is clearly marked, how to play? Don't tell me, the hundreds of millions that United Capital gave you have been spent again. Su Yorong looked at Lu Feng in panic and said, you still have 400 million in your original account, so much money, how did you spend it? I didn't spend it all. I bought a laboratory and invested 400 million yuan. The headquarters of the group has also been built this year. The initial investment is estimated to be 100 million yuan. Marketing promotion, new product launch, and dividends are all messed up. Isn't it all money? Lu Feng scratched his head worriedly and said, this world is getting harder and harder. That's right, no one is stupid, they are deceived every day. Su Yorong lay on the sofa and put his legs on Lu Feng's body and said, I can only help you here. This year, we invested in shares. In the first year of your career, if you fail to achieve results, don't blame others for withdrawing funds. Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent mobile version reading website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 749. No pressure is false. The bigger the development of GFN electronics, the more difficult it will be to increase a certain increment in the future. After all, it is easy to revitalize a small factory, but it is more difficult to make a large enterprise rise by a few points. Su Yorong promised Lu Feng to help him get in touch with President Lee, to clear up the relationship in the past few days and see if there was any progress. In the afternoon, Lu Feng went to the company, and today Wei Yandan has returned. Some people started to come to the company headquarters one after another, but before the official work resumed, Wei Yandan handed over the progress of the headquarters building and briefly reported to Lu Feng. Du Guoying also began to recruit talents in the marketing department of the communication company. He still had to rely on Zhu Lidong. If he wanted to gather all levels of talents in a short time, he could only recruit people from the marketing department of the headquarters. Pay more attention to the situation in Tianjin. The factory must be built this year and put into production next year. If it is not put into operation next year, then the production capacity will not be able to keep up. Lu Feng looked at Wei Yandan seriously. This year is a year of great expansion, and it is destined to be very tiring. It's still the same sentence: promote some capable people when they should be promoted, and try not to airborne. I will pay attention to personnel matters. I have been focusing my energy on Tianjin these days. Wei Yandan nodded. If you have any resources you can use, just ask. Because I don't have much time for this, I will be busy with communications. After a few words, Lu Feng went to the R/U0026D company. In the next few days, Lu Feng was basically running at the headquarters and the R/U0026D company. The shape of the pager has been determined. Mass production in March is not a problem. He also made a trip to the construction site of the headquarters building. The construction situation is relatively fast. After all, the current construction speed cannot be compared with the speed of 10 years later. It is expected to be put into use in 3 or 4 years, and this will also become the largest physical asset of GFN Electronics. Su Yorong was still helping to contact Mr. Li, but the other party seemed very willing to help, and found a lot of connections. The final answer was that the price of industrial land could be cheaper, and the bank could lend more money. The question is, who will build the large factory area covering an area of 10,000 mu? There is a door here. Which company undertakes the construction involves a lot of things. Mr. Li's message is very straightforward. If it is handed over to the 2 local construction companies, whichever one, the approval of this matter will be very fast. If you can give him a share, everyone will all happy. As soon as Lu Feng heard this, he immediately understood that the so-called subcontracting of the project was just an attempt to subcontract the contract. Whether it is GFN Electronics or GMA Foodstuff in front, there are many factories built, and Lu Feng understands the doorway inside. In the past, so many factories were either open to tender, or the local municipality went to ask some state-owned enterprises for help. The quality is at least not that bad. The money is more or less, and it is all from the local bank. It is nothing more than the left hand and the right hand. As for private contracting and then subcontracting, Lu Feng does not want to do it. Once the problem of arrears of wages for workers occurs, it will affect the construction progress. It was already the 10th day of the first day. Su Yorong was lying on the sofa watching TV, and said lazily, "If you don't know that, you have to set up a line with others. Otherwise, why would they be so enthusiastic about helping you? Get a contract, and that's all I can help you with." "Didn't you leave after a few days?" Lu Feng reached out and slapped her ass. "It's the 10th day, why don't you leave?" "I called the company, but I don't want to go to work. Let me be lazy for a few more days." Su Yorong turned over and hugged the pillow to her chest. "Lie down. Watching TV shows, doing laundry, so comfortable, I don't even want to work hard." "Then find someone to marry," Lu Feng said casually. "You don't want to marry. Even if you do, you'll be derailed later. If you're unhappy one day, I'll have to see your face. I'll serve you carefully, with a smile on my face. I'll do my best." Su Yorong leaning his head on the armrest of the sofa, he said dumbly, "Women are so difficult." Lu Feng didn't seem to be arguing with her. "She's been like this these days." The phone on the table rang. Lu Feng stood up and walked over to pick up the phone and said, "I'm Lu Feng, who is this?" "Mr. Lu, you have a lot of phone numbers. I called you several times before I found you. The voice of Deputy Mayor Lu came from the other end of the phone. Good thing, take a guess. Don't tell me you want to send me money, Lu Feng teased. I can't stand such a big surprise. People always have dreams. Tomorrow morning, the Symposium of Outstanding Innovative Technology Entrepreneurs must come. This time is a big event. Didn't I tell you last year that hard work will definitely pay off? You are so desperately engaging in research and development, the country can see it and keep it in mind. Deputy Mayor Lu said in a particularly gentle voice, you must come. Okay, definitely come. Lu Feng politely said a few words and hung up the phone. He was a little surprised. How could he really feel like he was going to send money? In 1994, in order to continuously promote technological upgrading and industrial upgrading, 4 years after the introduction of industrial transformation, major breakthroughs occurred in key industries, but there were situations such as incomplete upgrading and weak technology. Research and development enterprises have carried out a subsidy policy. 90% of the funds went to state-owned enterprises, and some care was given to private enterprises. In particular, the achievements of GFN Electronics are quite dazzling. At this critical time, whoever makes technological innovation and breaks the monopoly of foreign technology is a cow. However, our /U0026D investment runs counter to corporate profits. Investing 100 million yuan in research and development will not have any effect. If this 100 million yuan is thrown into the market to compete in the same industry, the effect will be obvious. Today's private enterprises are not lacking in research and development, but have no research and development at all. At 9 o'clock the next morning, Lu Feng drove to the market. There were 17 or 8 people sitting in a small conference room. The average age of these people was in their 40s, and they were all heads of state-owned enterprises. Lu Feng greeted each other for a while, then sat down one after another. The only chairman of a private company among so many companies present, from this point of view, it is enough to see the weight of GFN Electronics. A few minutes later, the door opened, and a man in his 50s walked in. He was tall and slightly fat. He looked kind, but his eyes flashed a keen light. Deputy Mayor Lu and a group of people followed behind. The people at the scene stood up and applauded. Legend walked to the front of the seat and said to everyone, "Sit everyone, this is basically a gathering of the outstanding entrepreneurs in our city, and it is also a happy gathering. I called everyone here today to convey a spirit. Industrial upgrading has entered the deep water zone, and now is the time when it needs to be exhausted, and more willpower is needed to promote it. Among the private enterprises, excellent private enterprises like GFN Electronics have emerged, and they have invested a lot of money and effort in continuous research and development, which is very good. If you want to develop continuously, you need to lead the times with innovation. In the field of technology, you are chasing me. And it is necessary to form an atmosphere among entrepreneurs, continue to promote industrial development, drive employment, and create new industries. Take VCD as an example. Such a product brought very considerable income to GFN Electronics last year. That's the power of innovation. The theme of this meeting is to encourage everyone to continue to dig deeper, and at the same time hope that everyone can take the lead. Maybe they also know that it is impossible to rely on private enterprises now. Small businesses make some money, go home first, build a house, buy a car, the boss gets drunk in karaoke or dance halls every day, and big businesses make money and spend it on strangling their peers. After all, few people can continue to make money from Xiangjiang to subsidize the company like Lu Feng. The symposium was held for more than an hour. 18 companies issued a total of 1 billion in subsidies, and GFN Electronics received 25 million. At noon, in the cafeteria, everyone gathered and chatted. Lu Feng seemed a little out of place. First of all, he was too different in age from this group of people. Second, they were all state-owned enterprises, and their own private enterprises could not get together. At noon, the glass was exchanged, and the atmosphere was quite good. Many people in the middle went to toast Legend, and Lu Feng took the glass and walked over. "Hello Secretary Li," Lu Feng said politely, holding a wine glass. "Lu Feng, you've done a good job. You are definitely a star of a private enterprise in our city in terms of research and development. I heard that you will be doing a newsletter this year," Legend asked. "This year, we acquired a laboratory from abroad, and we have to invest heavily in communication technology. This year, we have made breakthroughs in VCD, TV, and home appliances, especially DVD technology, which is already in trials and can record more. The content is up," Lu Feng introduced. "Very good, heroes are young, but young people are still motivated." Legend raised his glass and said, "I hereby sincerely wish you all good results and good results in the fields that we lack. If you have any difficulties, you can say that we can help you solve it, and we will definitely help you solve it." Lu Feng grinned. He had waited all morning, but he was waiting for this talk. "Since you have said it all, we do have difficulties recently," Lu Feng said solemnly. Legend was ready to drink, but he didn't expect Lu Feng to have a real difficulty. He stopped the wine glass he put in his mouth and said, "If you have any difficulties, tell me. Under the supervision of the leaders, we have developed too fast. We are really moving forward rapidly. This year, Wipita TV sets are selling well, home appliances are selling well, and VCDs are even more sold. This year, we will export overseas, and upload more for the production of pagers. 2 factories are not enough, I want to expand a factory." Lu Feng looked at him and said, "This is okay, we have to hurry up to do it, and it can also bring more jobs to our local area," Legend said happily. "That's right. President Lu, you can tell me about this deputy mayor," Lu said. I want to go to Tianjin." After Lu Feng finished speaking, the scene seemed a little embarrassing. Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent Mobile Version Reading Website.